Now, whilst the cake is being sliced up into enough portions for everyone to have a taste of it, I shall just speak for a few minutes, if I may. But I'm going back in time. We've heard a little bit about how Beverly came to the church, but I go back farther than that. And the year was 2014. I was acting then as the secretary to the PCC. And it was a little bit of a surprise in November when we were told that the current incumbent, Mary Ashton, was joining her husband in a new post in far-off Lancashire, miles away from here. I can't even pronounce the name of the town. I think it was Euxton. Is that right? Yes. So, we were facing our second interregnum in less than 3 years. Daunting tasks. But fortunately, some of our PCC members had worked through that previous vacancy and were able to help us a bit with writing a new parish profile, which ended up being the work of Paddy Payne, stood at the back there, produced a wonderful document. That document was sent to the diocese for distribution later to all the applicants who'd applied for the position of vicar of this parish. In December of that year, a PCC meeting was held, chaired by the Surrey Archdeacon, Stuart Beak, and also in attendance was Mavis Wilson. And they advised us that we had to have a Section 11 meeting. Sounds all very bureaucratic, but we did have this meeting, and at that meeting we had to decide upon who from the parish was going to represent us on the selection of the new vicar. That turned out that we decided that Paddy Payne, where has he gone? He's gone again, and Henrietta Harding would be our representatives on this selection board. Meanwhile, our two churchwardens, Mary Bentle and Richard Hemingway, were also kept extremely busy during the interregnum running the church with the help of our lay reader and Nick Farbridge. Time passed, and by April 2015, 2 potential candidates had been identified. It was decided that on the 21st of the month that they should be shown around the parish and that they should meet the PCC, the lay reader, and other members of the congregation for an evening meal. Now, Richard Pointer and Callie and Rob Birch had volunteered, and they drove the potential candidates around the parish. Richard started by picking the female candidate, as I'll call her at this stage, at Queen Eleanor's School. He began his tour by calling in at the vicarage and then driving up and down the roads of Guildford or our parish and ended up on the Mount. Having parked almost at the top, they walked across the lovely open fields that are up there, and Richard showed Beverly the view from on high of the parish. It's a wonderful place to look down on the parish and see where we all are. He pointed to the cathedral, and he finished his tour at the top of Stag Hill. To his surprise, Beverly made it clear that she was already familiar with that building. Richard wondered why. Meanwhile, Callie and Rob were taking the male candidate around the village. When it came to the evening meal in the hall, I think I was strategically placed next to the female candidate who was wearing a name badge. Striking up conversation with her, I asked, "Have you come far?" "I've come from Neachel," she responded. "Oh yes," I said, "I know that part of Birmingham very well, as I used to go up there and we had a company up there, so I knew Neachel quite well." "That's a long way to come," I said. "Oh yes. I then asked, "Why have you come all this long way?" "Oh, my husband works down here." "And what does he do?" I asked. Carefully pointing to her badge, she said, "I am Beverly Watson." "Yes," I responded. "But what does your husband do?" It was one of those moments when I wished the earth would have swallowed me up, as Beverly replied, "He's the Bishop of Guildford." Everyone I spoke to that night was convinced that Beverly was the right candidate for us, and happily she was selected to be the next Vicar of All Saints. And to our great delight, on the evening of Thursday the 3rd of September, Beverly was inducted as the Vicar of All Saints by the Bishop of Dorking, the Right Reverend Ian Blackley. Our wait was over, and the church was full again, a sight we have seen several times in the past 10 years. People have come and gone during Beverly's time with us. The pews became chairs. Some services have changed. COVID was endured. Part of the church building is falling away. But All Saints, under Beverly's thoughtful and prayerful guidance, has gone from strength to strength, and it is again a welcoming, happy place for people of all ages. Do enjoy your cake.
Well, while you're eating your cake, Robin has invited me just to say a few thoughts on my own sort of memories of the last 10 years or so. So if you sit comfortably, I decided I'd restrict myself for 10 minutes for 10 years. So these are probably about 10 things that I was sort of thinking over, reflecting on these last 10 years. And I particularly wanted to thank those who've organised this event today. It's really special, and I'm hugely grateful to Trish, I can see, and Henrietta, and Joe, and Robin, and many others I know. Just thank you so much for organising this lovely event. Well, as I was thinking about today, I was thinking back over the last 10 years. I had an idea that I'd have a quick look through my copies of the parish magazine. As you know, the magazine team does a fantastic job, month after month after month, and I've kept every single copy, so I'm now up to about 120 if I've got my maths right. And you know, interestingly, only 1 month is missing, which is April 2020, when COVID first struck. But otherwise, the magazine comes out month after month. So I thought I'd just have a quick look. You can't have a quick look, can you, at the magazines? It turned into sort of 3 or 4 hours of reading. But it was really moving, just taking stock of everything, or a snapshot of what's happened over the last 10 years. And the first thing I really noticed is just so much goes on, isn't it? My first Sunday here 10 years ago started like this, with a lovely gathering and the church family picnic on the field. And here 10 years later, we're still holding picnics on the field on this first Sunday in September. And there are so many events that keep going. Bonfire and fireworks, harvest suppers and quizzes, summer fairs and now autumn fairs, pancake nights, board games afternoon, pantomimes. I saw some wonderful photos of the pantomimes. Murder mysteries at Willow Grange, missions walks, Christian Aid car washes and cake sales. There's just so much happening all the time here at All Saints. And of course, next thing I noticed was so many of our events focus around the church's year, the Christian year, and that round of festivals and special services. Every year there's harvest and remembrance and Advent and Christmas and Lent and Easter and Pentecost. And over the years we've developed our own pattern for celebrating that's unique to us. So our patronal festivals coming up. Remembrance, we invite the uniformed organisations every year. Children's church on that Sunday before Christmas, and the Nativity, always a lovely event. 9 lessons and carols, lovely to see Jeremy here today. Lent lunches, Lent courses. I always enjoy the Easter sunrise service at 5 a.m. and breakfast in the vicarage. They're all part of our liturgical year, as it were. And it's a way of life I've grown to treasure, as I know many of us have. And of course, the other thing you notice from the magazines is so much goes on behind the scenes, year by year. Children's church, lovely to have Julie and Jeanette. Children's church, youth club, toddler group, serving families across our parish. We now have 10 small groups, Bible study groups, many of them, offering hospitality and prayer and that opportunity to go deeper in faith. Of course, there's the work of the PCC, the finance team, the pastoral team, the missions group, the premises group, our churchwardens, our preachers, our musicians, our coffee team. So many people. We've seen many of them working today, but serving faithfully behind the scenes just to make this church the special community it is. And that ongoing round of baptisms, confirmations, weddings, funerals, our work with the schools and Drake Court. And I think as I read through the magazines, I was just aware of that faithful service of so many people here in this church. In fact, almost everyone has a role, a part to play. From our children, it's lovely to see Gwen and Rowan offering coffee and other children serve as here on a Sunday, right through to Margaret Arney there, our most senior member, who has reached 100 years. Our senior members who still pray for us and contribute financially. It's lovely, that sense of everyone working together, and it's impressive, something we should never take for granted. But the other thing I noticed reading through the magazines is that All Saints has a history, and we're part of that ongoing journey and story today. As I mentioned, the very first communion service took place in Onslow Village in 1923. Then very soon after that, the tin hut was built, as it was fondly called. Some of us will remember. And then on this spot in 1967, this building was completed. And so for over 100 years, people have worshipped together in this place. They've loved one another. They've served the wider community of this parish and beyond. And I love that sense of history. We're called to play our part in this place for now, with others who've gone before us. And it's just great to see some of those who've served here, Barbara and Phil, Callie and Rob, so many who've served here before, coming back today. We serve today, and eventually we'll pass on the baton to the next people who come after us. And I do feel today it's a great privilege to have been the vicar here in this place for a decade. And of course there have been some particularly memorable times, memorable celebrations over the last 10 years. One that came quite early in my time was the 50 years celebrations in 2017. You may remember we invited back baptism families, wedding couples, previous clergy, people who'd moved to different places. But it was a wonderful time of sort of reflecting on the history so far. It helped me to understand a bit more of where we've come from. I remember Tom New, who was the vicar when this church was built. He came back. He was in his 90s. It was very moving, that sense of the history, the journey, taking up the baton, passing on the baton. I remember we had a lovely hog roast afterwards out on the field. And another special event, I think, was the call to licence ministry of both Callie Birch and Alison Molden. That came quite early on in my time. 2017 and 2018, I think, Alison and Callie began their training. Alison to licensed lay ministry and Callie to ordained ministry. And it's been a great joy to watch their progress over the years. And that call to licensed or ordained ministry has been a feature of these last 10 years. Pippa Ford, you will remember, joined us in 2017 as a curate and was priested at Guildford Cathedral in 2018. Lydia Watson, our daughter, now Lydia Padfield, began her ordination training a couple of years later, and she'll now be starting a curacy in Newcastle next year. And Andy Wells, of course, just beginning his third and final year before being ordained next year, 28th of June, put it in your diary. And Andy will be our curate here, which is wonderful. And I think that sense of vocation is really special, following in the footsteps of Mike Truman. Where's Mike? There you go. And Dave Barclay, who've been licensed lay ministers here for many, many years. So now, of course, I'm starting to look around and think, who's next? Who's next? How exciting. Let me know if it's you. And of course, as Andy brought up in the service, there have been challenges over the last 10 years as well. Of course there have. And COVID comes to mind. It had a big impact on us, as for so many people. I found it shocking to have to close the doors of the church. That's never happened before in the life of the church in this country. And I was very aware that many of us, were suffering, struggling with the challenge of health, loneliness, and all the rest. But if you remember, we were quick off the mark in terms of responding. And here we really have to thank Trish. You can't hide there, Trish. Trish always has this amazing can-do approach. It's all easy, it'll all be fine. And so Trish, with her extraordinary IT skills, helped us to produce our first online service on Mother's Day 2020, just a few days after the first lockdown. I remember it so well. Over 200 people were watching on that first Sunday. And it was the first of almost a year of services which we recorded and put out every Sunday morning. And although there were many challenges, I have some very fond memories of that time too. The way so many members of our congregation, so many of you were willing to record yourself at home, leading prayers. I remember putting together music ensembles. Paddy and Liz family come to mind, and Az were involved with that too. I remember our preachers preaching into their phones, trying to make it look natural. And some wonderful children's activities on children's slots online, complete with activities to do in your sitting room. I thought it was amazing what we managed to achieve over that time, not least taking out the pews and making our church much more accessible and just so much more versatile for worship and for the wider community. I sometimes look back at the archives of those services, very special times, and also the way they shape the worship pattern we now have and the way we do things. But then, of course, Robin has alluded to this. Another big challenge came a few years later with the cracking of the walls in the library. We've screened it off so you can't see how bad it is. But the problem hasn't gone away, and so 2 years ago we gathered our Big Build team together and we started to chart a way forward for the buildings. So as we've said, that area has to come down. But instead we're going to redevelop the foyer area. We're going to extend it so we'll have a much bigger worship space. We could have done with that today on future occasions. We're going to have a bigger office. Lovely, yes. We're going to have a huge kitchen. Hooray! And most exciting, we're going to have three toilets. And of course it will have a much bigger, brighter, more modern look. So it's been a long journey, a challenging journey, but we're getting there. We've raised the best part of £300,000 ourselves. We've been granted a faculty by the Church of England, and we hope within the next few days that we'll be given planning permission by Guildford Borough Council. So please do continue to pray for us, that vision will grow and develop. We will worship more richly, and we'll be more of a hub for the local community. Well, it's hard. What else? It's hard to condense 10 years into 10 minutes or so. But I guess I really feel All Saints to me is about people. people who worship here Sunday by Sunday, people who walk the Christian life together and keep the faith. I think that is what gives me joy Sunday by Sunday and week by week. Over the past 10 years, we've said goodbye to many of our faithful brothers and sisters. Some have moved to their eternal home, others have moved to different parts of the country. But over the years, we've also welcomed many new people steadily and consistently. I loved reading the parish profiles in the magazine. They're a wonderful record of new people coming in. We find out a bit about them. Sometimes they've come for baptism, come for all sorts of reasons. And then gradually, very quickly, they become part of the furniture. And I've loved that. I was especially moved by Phil and Joe and the children being here today. They were the first family who came in my time for baptism. Now, 10 years later, we're praying for little Finn as he goes off to school. There's just a sense of the Lord bringing people in, continuing the ministry here in this place. So today I'd like to thank you for coming and thank you for continuing to encourage me as your vicar here at All Saints. It's been a special time, as we've said, in our lives of Andrew and I. Andrew's completed 10 years as Bishop of Guildford, become a member of the House of Lords. We've seen 3 of our children married, including Lydia and Sam here at All Saints. And we now have our 3 lovely, delightful grandsons. So we're older, we're wrinklier than we were. But I do hope to keep going here at All Saints for a bit longer. I would love to see the building project through. I'd love to see our church growing, continuing to grow in numbers and depth of faith. Wouldn't it be lovely if we were this full every Sunday? And I'd love to see us continuing to grow in our love for the Lord and for each other. And I'd love to be able to continue to enjoy the blessing of this congregation who means so much to me. So thank you for having me, as they say, and may the Lord continue to bless us in the years ahead.